Hi, I'm Jennifer Branch, and today we're painting a beautiful candle in a dark window. Let's paint. I've speeded up the drawing of the candle a little bit, but it's just any old candle in a reflective area, and I'm painting it against a window so the reflection will show up. I start with some blue, very, very subtly around. And this is going to be just kind of a background reflection and a little bit of splatter paint just to get me, make it very relaxed. Some nickel Azo Yellow because I'm wanting a golden glow on the candle. And I'm using just a touch of the nickel Azo on the candle itself. It's going to be much, much lighter than the surrounding dark window, but it's still a white candle in a dark room is still pretty dark and pretty orange. And I do want that to blur there. That should give me the little blue center there is at where it's the hottest in the flame. Some cobalt violet. And I'm really not doing very much on this first layer. I'm just doing a framework for it. But all of these areas will be very difficult to do once I've got the strong darks for the rest of it. This is burnt sienna with a little bit of ultramarine blue. And I'm just going around the candle shape and kind of doing a rough outline of the table and everything. I'm leaving a lot of holes, but I'm wanting some very strong darks in this. And it's going to get much, much darker. Remember from my painting how to mix paints video, you can only go so deep in value on the first wash. Now here's some ultramarine blue, just dropping that on. And this looks very, very dark so far, but it's going to dry lighter. It's especially going to dry lighter using the Strathmore cards because you can only, it soaks up a lot more. There's not much sizing on that compared to a traditional watercolor watercolor paper. So there's some, when you're using the cheaper paper like that, there's some little tricks that you use, and that's limit the number of washes, maybe put paint on a little bit heavier, but you can only go so far. If you put it on too heavy, it's going to look like sludge. So the truth is, when you're using cheaper paper, you will never get the results you can get very easily using expensive paper. But on the other hand, this is a Christmas card. This is fun. This is something to send to somebody that they don't have to hang up on their wall if they don't want to. But they can if it's, an exquisite masterpiece. So you can get very good results with this, but it's not going to be quite the same as, say, if you're using a nice Arches 140 pound, because it's not the same quality of paper. And paper makes a big difference in the painting. Okay, so I'm just going in, I'm doing very deep washes, but still not so dark that it's going to look like sludge. I'm just moving around in the dark places. I will tone down a lot of the lights in this. There aren't that many lights in this painting, but there is one area, the window, that's extremely dark. And that's the area that I'm focusing on because it sets off the candle and it makes the candle really show up. It makes the little silver dish really show up. And the rest of it, it's just a little wash, a little bit of paint on it, and it's fine. So some splatter to cut off that area where I was falling out of the painting a little bit. Now I want the warmer red in this and not so much of the dull burnt sienna. It needs that glowing effect, where there's the reflections from the room on there. And I'm not painting all of that, but I do want the same sort of colors that would be in that. I'm just dashing a little bit in there. I don't want too much detail in the candle. This isn't a how do you paint silver. It's a Christmas card, so have some fun with it. You want the warm colors, but you want them very dark, so the Ultramarine Blue, Maroon Perylene. Now you want some bright cadmium red to really make that candle glow, because it's glowing against that night sky, and it's just a welcoming gesture for someone that's coming home. So just let it drip down there, and you're going to use that same cadmium red to reflect on to have the reflections and the light show up on the table, and pulling some of the cobalt violet in. That's a really great grainy color, and it dries a lot darker than you put it on. So keep that in mind. Now, just dashing around, smoothing some edges. And you see how much the painting changes every time it dries. I'm pulling out some of the color here with a wet brush, just a clean wet brush, and blotting it. Now, this may not be how you paint silver, but it is a very good opportunity to get the idea of painting silver, to really notice, or brass, or whatever metal, reflective metal your candlestick happens to be. But you want to notice those reflections and notice how the color changes with the color of the metal, and just, it's a great opportunity to observe, like all sketches. The candle will still be even a little bit brighter. And observe a candle flame. Where is that red? Because the flame is certainly not bright white or anything. It's a very translucent color. Very intense, though. That's kind of a tricky combination. I'm having some fun fussing with it. I just want to put the bright orange red everywhere, but, too much would be too much. Just dashing a couple lines in to make the dish start to take shape. I use a lot of the wetted and pull it out technique with something that's a dull reflection like that. And then if you do some crisper lines on top of it, then those are your crisper reflections where everything's in focus. But there's a lot of curved surfaces that they're blurred reflections. And silver's everything from very, very light and white reflections to just as dark as you can possibly get, all in the same surface, because it is a mirror. It's a curved, really complicated mirror. So keep it simple, realize those couple little tips, and just play with it for a couple minutes. But don't spend all day on this. If you try to do it in too much detail, if you are doing anything other than just learning to observe it, having some fun, sketching it, it's going to start looking off. You don't want too much detail, or it has to be really accurate and photorealistic. And this is a Christmas card. Observe, paint, move on. So this is probably one of the more complicated ones, but it's also a really fun one to do. And most people have candles and some sort of reflective metal surface and a window. At least I hope you have all three of those. So I didn't want you to paint mine. I wanted you to paint one that you were looking at. So yeah, this is when you can learn a little bit from. But don't spend very long over it. Now I'm going back and doing a couple more precise lines, but it's still a tiny bit damp. Everything's still bleeding a little bit. This paper is like a sponge. And no, not too much detail. Can't do it. At those darks, just bleed them in because the reflections do change. And notice how a lot of times they have little curved U-shaped things at the sides. Softened that. The little blue wick. I just have to do a little bit more of the Cad Red. It's such a happy color for a candle in a window. Just keep moving around. A little bit of the orange reflection on the table. Blur some of the edges. You want all the focus to be on the candle. It's a beautiful lit candle in a dark room. Now I've pulled out some of the paint by wetting it and then just blotting it with the rag, just like I did before. A few dashes with the rigger, pulling a little of the paint out and adding a golden glow so it reflects in the window. That's all you need. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it inspires you to paint a beautiful candle for a Christmas card of your very own. There's more information on my website, paintingwatercolor.com. If you like this video, please subscribe because we have 12 days of Christmas cards. Have a joyful holiday.